We love hip hop.
Yes. Yes.
Like so much extra content has come out of this. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my God.
Where like, I feel like, I don't know if you've noticed, some people's whole YouTube channels have blown up off of this.
Really?
Yeah. I was watching some reaction people talking about the beef and how it's helped the whole thing.
Yes.
And some people caught like 100,000 subscribers.
I could see
just
that.
off talking about beef.
I could see that.
You know
I
what
could
mean?
see that because it became literally front page news.
Okay, so let me ask you before we start our conversation here,
Yes.
okay? What was your verdict on that? Drake or Kendrick?
All right. So I'm going to give it's going to sound like a political answer, and it kind of
Okay,
is.
okay.
Okay. But I think it's the fair answer, which is that I think with battles, the thing I love about battles is the audience decides. The people decide. You know what I mean?
Wins.
like I'm not even just saying hip hop wins political like that. I think a winner has been declared. Okay. It's not up to me to decide the winner. I think the culture, the community picked a winner.
Right.
Out of the two.
Yes.
I think that is the bottom line. That is what transpired. Now,
the public picked Kendrick, but
the
continue.
public picked Kendrick, but I also think, and again, I take it back to battles like from when we were coming up that we're live. Okay, two things happen. One, the audience picks a winner.
Yes.
But the other thing that happens is the next day, the next week, whatever, the audience, the general feeling is the audience was like, that was a dope event.
Yeah.
And I think that's the truth of the Kendrick and Drake thing too, is that what we just witnessed was wild.
Yeah.
Wild entertainment for all of hip hop. And that's going to be, as the dust settles and we get further and further away, that will be the overwhelming sense of things. But to your question,
who was the winner?
I think the winner was Kendrick.
Okay.
I think the winner was Kendrick. I think Drake held his own. It was 20v1.
True.
I think he absolutely held his own. But I do think in the end, the audience picked a winner.
Okay.
We ended up, the dust settled and we ended up with someone was declared the winner.
Let me ask you a follow-up question.
Yeah.
With this whole battle, we've seen, and I'm asking you as somebody who's documented hip hop, right? Is this the best hip hop battle that we've had in our lifetime?
It's not even close.
Which one is the best for you?
This battle, bro, like by the end,
actually, hold on.
This battle was so great that by the end, by Sunday night, like everyone was like, I'm actually exhausted.
Too many tracks.
Like this was just actually so much that it got to the point where it was actually exhausting.
Yeah.
I'm glad they picked the right time to end it because we were all like, we can't even do this anymore.
Too many breakdown videos.
Bro, too many breakdown videos. It's just taking up too much of I have my own life. I'm an adult, bro. Like I can't be spending all this time clicking refresh.
Kendrick dropped again.
Clicking refresh to see if somebody else, it was, to me, there's no comparison. Like I think about Nas and Jay-Z. I think about, for me, I'm 41. So when Cannabis dropped second round knockout, that was huge. You know what I mean? So I think about these moments, but they were sending like 6-minute songs at each other, like 6 in 6 days. Or something like that. Like there's just no comparison. Plus their stature.
Yeah.
Plus their stature. I mean, I'm curious to hear your opinion, but like, Nas, Jay-Z, that's comparable in terms of the stature, but Kendrick and Drake for the last 15 years have been the top two guys.
The big three, or two of the big three.
Two of the big three. So, I mean, this is Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania if the match lasted, you know what I mean?
Yeah, or Undertaker and Steve Austin.
Undertaker and Steve Austin if the match lasted, you know what I mean, 12 hours. Like, it was crazy.
I think with us, it's hard to say because we've seen so many good battles. But for the younger generation, if they were just to go back in history and then look at our older battles and then look at what they have now with the amount of content, because what the things they care about, this might still go down as one of like top 3 battles in history.
This is without question top 3 battles in history. You know, there are ones that are a little bit before my time. You know, the Kool Mo D LL.
Yeah.
You know, like really, and that was significant because now you're talking about a new generations kind of going at it. That's all very significant, but like the volume of tracks, the caliber of the tracks, the caliber of the strategy, the level of the artists, you know, it was unbelievable. The only thing for me is like, I don't like how it eventually the conversation all became about what's true and what's not true.
Yeah.
I don't like that. To me, that takes away from what it's supposed to be about, especially when we're trying to find out what is true and not true. Is like, we're not equipped as individuals to like determine that. And I just don't like that aspect of it. You know what I mean? Again, I come from like the stage battles where you might make up something about someone, but no one can verify. It's just if you can use it to some effect, then that's cool.
Yeah.
You know, nobody is in the audience going, is that true? Is that not true? It's all about the reaction to it.
We don't have to go do Googles and do research afterwards.
That's the only aspect of it, you know, I wasn't on board for. Beyond that, like, that was just unbelievable.
No, epic. And listen, let's get into our conversation here about you, because your opinion to me really matters, especially with the wealth of experience of you being an artist. This gentleman is a hip hop documentarian. You know what I mean? I would activist, and I would say low key, probably one day politician.
We'll see.
Okay. With no further ado, we have Shadrach Kabongo.
Thank you.
In the motherfucking building.
Thank you.
Not in the zone, it's too much in the way. I weigh $2, and if I had 2 slugs to spray.
Thanks for coming through. Before we start this, I want to just give a quick salute to the sponsors. Okay, big salute to Diamond Club. Okay, delivery all over the GTA. We're over here at the Toronto Collective today, so I'm not inside smoking. All right, so big salute to Toronto Collective also. But Diamond Club, if you want delivery of that loud across the GTA, hit them up on their Instagram page, diamondclub_Canada, and you could use the code We Love Hip Hop and get yourself a little discount. Also, if you need to get some blem, hit up Steamin' Hot Grabber. Hit them up on their Instagram page, Steamin' Hot Grabber, and get some of the best grabber in the country. And you could use the code We Love Hip Hop. But listen, bro, I'm really, really excited to have this convo here because I've been watching you from the time when I was seeing you on Much Music, doing your thing. And then I'm there watching Netflix and I'm like, oh, there he is again, right? But then when I'm listening to your music, okay, just to get into some stuff from the beginning, right? When I first saw you on TV, right? For lack of a better terms, you were like a friendly rapper, right? Like fun rap. Low key, you've evolved into a serious, like, musical activist. Was that from the beginning, or is that something that's always been going on? Like, that's something that happened over time?
Yeah, no, I think, okay, I'll tell you the evolution for me. So always, you know, I've been interested in 2 things at the same time with music.
Yeah.
I got into hip hop because I was just freestyling with friends like all of us. So that's all about the fun of it and the joy of it, right? But the thing that really made me take it seriously is the fact that you could get serious, you could get personal, you could tell your story. So it's like, I always loved both of those things. You know, I've always loved putting the joy in the music and that spark that hip hop has of excitement and fun. And then I've also always loved the side of, you know, you can tell your story and you can be honest. So that's always both been there. I think the evolution for me was at a certain point, probably 10 years into my career. I felt really content with telling my own story. I felt like, you know what, I've told my story and now I'm actually more interested in looking out at the world.
Right.
You know what I mean? Through more of a philosophical lens. You know what I mean? So that's where I have been, I would say, in the last 6-7 years. has been
Okay.
like, okay, yeah. No, I've gotten to tell people who I am.
Mhm.
I feel really good about that. That's like a gift that hip hop gives all of us. We tell our story. And now it's like, okay, what else do I want to say? And it's like,
Yeah.
I want to talk about what's going on more than I want to talk about. I've always talked about what's going on, but I want to talk about that more than I want to talk about me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The ongoing saga of me. That's what trap rappers can fall into. I think, to be honest, me rap.
Yeah.
I call it the ongoing saga of me. You know what I mean? Where it's like everything just has to be the continuation of your. It's like you can evolve, man. We can tell other stories. We can, you know what I mean? So that's where I've been at.
That actually sparks another question in my mind because that's very interesting, like the timeline. And not to skip forward too much, but like you were the host of Hip Hop Revolution, right?
Is the birthplace where it all began. Watch me now. Feel the groove. How the crowds respond when you drop crazy.
The documentary show on Netflix, amazing show. But was it shortly after that, with all those experiences going all over the States, meeting all these different, pioneers in the game, and then you go back to the booth, like, did it give you a different insight when you start writing?
Yes. What it did was I was always inspired because the first season of Hip Hop Evolution, we were filming that around 2014, let's say. Now, then season 2, 3, 4, say 2018 or 2017-ish ahead. So what was happening in those years was we would go film for like a couple weeks, then I'd come home, I'd be recording.
Right.
So I was always inspired. Always inspired.
Like, hey, I just I was hanging out with Snoop Dogg. I'm gonna go home and write an album.
That's it. And it come back. And it's like the thing I was always inspired to do was less like, oh, I talked to Snoop and I learned this thing. It was less that, and it was more like, yo, I just talked to Snoop about Doggy Style and The Chronic, and now I'm inspired to try to do something special.
Yeah.
Also, that's my own. That's not that story. It's my own thing to offer. So that was a great time. I was very fortunate to get to be a part of that. That was like, we knew we were going to make the first season, and we didn't know we'd get the chance to make more seasons and travel all over to places. I've been to New York a lot. I'd been to LA a lot, but I'd never been to Memphis. I'd never been to
Atlanta,
Miami. I never spent that much time in Atlanta. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was really special, and I learned a lot. And salute all the pioneers, of course. The series is just a celebration of what they did, which is amazing.
Yeah. Well, I want to unpack that in a minute, like to get more in depth with that. But like just to go back into your history, right? You represent, or I don't want to say represent, but you're from London, Ontario.
That's right.
Originally, right? But before that, you actually were born in Africa.
That's right.
Parents were from Rwanda.
Correct. Yeah.
Right? And then they had you in Kenya.
That's right.
And then you had a sister.
That's right. I got a sister. I got a much younger brother. But yeah, so we came in the early 80s, mid 80s. Settled
went
straight to London, Ontario.
Straight to London. Wow.
Straight to London, Ontario. They said, where do you want to go? My parents were like, where's their jobs? They're like, London, bet. And so that's where we went.
So getting there to London in the beginning, was there any kind of, I don't want to say culture shock because y'all were still pretty young.
Oh,
right?
yeah, I was a baby, yeah.
Right? But like, London is not Toronto. It's not as multicultural, right?
No.
So were you like one of the only African families on the block type shit?
Let me paint the picture.
Please.
My dad started the African Association of London, Ontario.
What?
Because there were so few Africans that it was literally like, wherever you're from on the continent, come through. Okay? Because in order to build some solidarity and some community, because you're talking about London, Ontario in the early 80s. Bless that place where, in terms of opportunities and stuff, my family, we were able to secure life, but it also came with its challenges. So one of the things that made my dad start that organization was there was a professor at Western, the university in town, named Philip Rushton, and he was publishing these pseudoscientific reports about race and intelligence
Mm-hmm.
and how Black people are the least intelligent of all the races.
Yikes.
You know, meanwhile, my uncles are sitting in class, like at that school, like, yo, like, what are we supposed to do here now? This is circulating, literally coming out of this university. So these were some of the things, you know, that were going on that the community was up against and how small it was. Now, eventually, like that group disbanded because there was more immigration through the years. Each country could have their own community, but that's to paint a picture. That's what it was like in terms of, you know, culture and the size of the Black community is very small.
Wow. So there must have been a lot of like weird dynamics going on over there when you're growing up. Like you obviously had some good memories. Yeah. You probably had some different ones at the same time. Like you probably had some racism happen.
Whoa, yeah. Like I said, you know, like again, I always want to say my parents, you know, they've retired and moved back to Rwanda since like 15 years ago. But you know, very grateful for a safe place to grow up and all of that and all the opportunities and all of the friendships and all that. But it was not without its challenges. You know, my parents had challenges at work. Like I said, in the city at large, there was ideas that were fairly mainstream that were floating around, right? So it wasn't without its challenges. Fortunately, we had a good family. We had a strong community, like I said. But yeah, it's a trip.
It could be trippy.
Yeah.
What about with the music parts, right? Like I would imagine in the household, you're hearing different music from home, right?
That's right.
But you're the oldest in the family? You're the oldest of your siblings?
No, second.
So you're the middle child.
Yeah.
So your older sister.
Yeah.
What's she listening to? Big salute to the sponsors, Diamond Club, with delivery all over the GTA and now all across Canada. They got the best selection of flour, edibles, and pens, and all types of goodies that you need. You can find them on their Instagram page, DiamondClub_Canada, or you can find them on the 7 Days of Weed app, as well as the Leafy Things app. Let them know that you heard about them through the We Love Hip Hop Network, and they may give you a discount. Big salute to Diamond Club. Cheer!
Whitney Houston, Waiting to Exhale soundtrack. I actually had to destroy her Waiting to Exhale soundtrack to take a screwdriver to the CD.
Oh man,
it was just like on repeat too much. You know, but my sister and I, we both love music. Much music was on all day. The radio was on all day. My parents were playing African music, gospel music. What else were they playing? And then, you know, whatever popular music went over there that they got into, right? So I remember them playing ABBA.
Okay.
I remember them playing Simon and Garfunkel. Like my aunts, I grew up with my aunts in the house too, and they loved Simon and Garfunkel. I loved listening to that with them when I was a little kid. So it's just like these artists that made it all the way over there, right? That everybody loved. But yeah, it was much music and the radio on all day long.
And you know, besides being obviously a hip hop head, you're an enjoyer of easy listening, right? Like Bonnie Raitt.
Love it.
Huey Lewis.
Trust me. That's London, Ontario right there. You know what I mean? Yeah. No, I love all music. Like I'll talk books with somebody. And they're like, oh, you're really into books. I'm like, no. I'm a music guy.
Yeah.
I'm a music guy. Yes, I like this and yes, I like that, but I love music. I love almost every kind of music. Yeah, and I love my easy listening.
Yeah, man. Salute to easy listening, man. Oldie stations now. And, you know, with you getting into the rapping and stuff, right? I seen you like in the early 2000s already, you know, on Much Music and stuff.
Yeah.
But you had also time to go get your master's.
That's right.
All the way across the country in Vancouver. So what came first? Were you already heavily into the rapping at this point?
Yeah. So let me give you the timeline. So finished high school and went to Laurier in Waterloo. I studied business there. Then when I was in my third year at Laurier, there was this unsigned talent radio thing. Competition, and I won that, and that allowed me I got money for winning that went to recording.
Okay.
So that's how I made my first album. Then I was kind of touring that and stuff and working on my second album. Then when that came out, when that was about to come out, I went back to school because I wasn't sure if it was going to work. You know what I mean?
Wait, not to interrupt you.
Yeah.
You had the first album out and you already had like a music video that was on.
Not yet. Not
that
on
was
that
the
first
second
one. That was the
album.
second one. So the second one, before the second one came out, I was like, I gotta, I don't know this music thing, especially you will remember early 2000s, mid 2000s hip hop in Canada. Like there wasn't too many people, success stories, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it was like, let me be realistic about this. I love making music. I'm going to try and make music. Obviously, I'm going to try to push this album, but this may or may not work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this was those times, right? So, so I went back to school. It was part-time so I could still do the music thing. And fortunately, that album was the one that started to get some traction, Juno nominations and videos and things like that, and allowed me to have a career. But I could still finish that degree because it was very part-time. Like took me 4 years. It should probably take someone a year or two. But
Yeah, because I'm saying like you're moving around now, right? So I would imagine it would have been a little bit harder to finish school at that point. Right?
Yes. So it was very part-time at that point. But that's basically it. And the only thing I would say also about that is like, I realized at a certain point that there's this idea of like, what are you going to be when you grow up? Right. And what's implied in that is always one thing.
Right.
And I realized, why does it have to be one thing? Why can't I do two things, three things, two things at once, a third thing later? You know what I mean? So I've always tried to keep that mindset of just be open. You know what I mean? And other people will define you. You don't need to define yourself. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Other people will define you. You don't need to define yourself. So pursue all the things you have the energy to pursue and see what happens.
No, that's really interesting as far as like with everything that you had going on, and you were pretty young at that point, right?
Yes, yeah. But the good thing with that is you have the energy.
Yes. But you must have been like kind of like a kid in a candy store for a second, like, holy shit, I'm on TV, which at that point in those times, that was being viral.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So like you start having people walk up to you in the street like, yo, you're Shad. What's that experience like as a young man?
Trying to go back to the first experiences of that. And, the cool thing is like, yeah, in those days, like I said, I grew up watching much music all day long. So to have videos on there was like a trip.
Bustle probably recommend braces. That's another G. Well, thanks a lot, Doc. But listen, I can brush my teeth.
Yeah.
To get to participate in the thing that I looked up to was a trip. But the other thing is, it's all happening so fast, you can't even really fully appreciate it. That's the thing I've learned in my life is like, it's all about how you go through the thing. You got to try to remember and be grateful. And, I have fond memories, don't get me wrong, but like, I couldn't even really fully appreciate because it's all moving so fast.
Yeah.
And just trying to also keep it going. And, the timing thing is interesting, right? Like, yeah, I don't know. I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for it all in retrospect. But yeah, it was, that was a cool moment when it's just starting to really unfold and then go over to a point where it's like, wow, I can really do this now.
Yeah, you started like you were getting to a point where you're starting to boil over into the United States and stuff, which at that time was a huge accomplishment for an artist. Like I watched an interview where you were, I don't remember, I think you might have been in New York City doing the interview.
Yeah.
On the second album.
That's right. Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. Like those times, man, like it was hard. I couldn't play a show in the States until 2008 was maybe like my first time to even get to perform because it's hard.
Yeah.
Get all the visas and all that and to get heard and to, and all of that. So So that was cool. And yeah, I released my third album on a label called Decon. It's now called Mass Appeal. So yeah,
and that's the label that Nas was associated with.
that's right.
Yes.
Yeah. So he's one of the owners of that label. They put out Run the Jewels and some other people. So
yeah.
So that was a special time for sure. Just, you know, when things are just starting to work. You know?
Yeah. So, and I'm gonna go forward just a little bit.
Yes.
Right? That's like late 2000s, getting into 2010s and stuff, right? And you mentioned, and we talked about hip hop evolution earlier. That was 2014.
That's when we started filming. Yeah. I think the first season came out in 2016, something like that.
So in between that time, right? Let's say 2010 to 2014, you're evolving in the scene and stuff like that. What put you into position where people knew you were the right guy for that job? Big salute to Steamin' Hot Grabba with a variety of different Grabba flavors and dispensers. They got red rose Grabba, that red herring Grabba, and peanut butter. Hit them up on their Instagram page, Steamin' Hot Grabba, and use the code WeLoveHipHop and receive a discount on your order. Again, you can find them on Instagram, Steamin' Hot Grabba. Now let's get back to the show. Cheer.
For Hip Hop Evolution?
Yeah.
You know,
there must have been something in between in like the things that you were doing in your career, maybe places that you were speaking, things like that. It was like, Shad would be the perfect person to narrate this show or to host this show.
Probably a couple of things. One, so the director of Hip Hop Evolution, Darby Wheeler, he used to program Much Music.
Okay.
And also worked on the Strombo show. So he was aware of my work. The writer, one of the writers, main writer, Rodrigo Bascunin, he ran Pound Magazine, started Pound Magazine.
Wow.
So he was also, you know, aware of my work. You know, and I think they both also knew about the whole school thing with me and the fact that, you know, I was a student of music, but also like literally a student. Like I'm curious and I love to learn about stuff.
Yeah.
I think those were some of the main things, right? So then they're looking around the scene, like who could be somebody that, you know, has experience performing, quote unquote. Not that I had experience on screen, but I had experience as a performer.
Right.
And then has this curiosity, right, about hip hop and about the world. So I think you'd have to ask them, but I think those were the things.
Did you have to audition?
I didn't have to audition.
Okay, dope.
Yeah, which was cool. And then, and then other little things, right? Like, so to your question about speaking and stuff like that. So there was something I did on the CBC called Canada Reads that is like this book competition where they pick five people pick a book and advocate for that book. And then there's somebody that wins in the end. It's like Book Survivor or something like that. And that was in 2012. And the book I defended won that. So I think that also maybe spoke to my ability to kind of speak and to, you know what I mean? And again, just as a curious person and as a learner. So maybe all those things combined led them to say, okay, I think this is maybe the person. And then, like I said, we thought we would get to make one season and we ended up getting to make
four seasons out of it.
Four seasons. But,
so season one, let's unpack that now.
Yes.
Season one, that started like, that was the New York one when they were talking about.
Yeah, we started in New York. Actually, almost the whole season is in New York. I think just the last episode is LA.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is it like now? You're getting to meet some of the people that you grew up listening to and watching on TV. You're not just meeting them just like happen chance. Like you're sitting down having full out interviews, picking their brain, like your crazy backgrounds. What's the feelings going on inside you, man, as a hip hop head?
Yo, so to this day, interviewing Kool Herc, I'll see some of those clips will circulate from time to time, especially when it's like the anniversary of hip hop or whatever. And it still is surreal.
That's me.
It's like, that's me with Kool Herc. And there's like a little smirk on my face because I'm just, even in the scene, I'm like, I can't believe I'm like, walking beside Kool Herc.
Yeah.
And one memory I have is at one point he's telling me a story and then we both kind of like look and we're at this place, a bit of an elevation in the Bronx, and you can just see a lot of New York from that perch. And I'm just thinking about how the whole culture of the city is hip hop. And if you look even further, the whole world has been touched by hip hop.
Yeah.
And I'm here with this guy, and he's just a human being. And the thing that I learned working on that season was they were doing this stuff at 13, 14.
Yeah.
It doesn't come across whenever they do the biopics how young they were. These were children.
Yeah.
Breakdancing, using records in ways you're not supposed to, doing all this stuff. They were just kids. They were just brilliant kids. So those are some of my memories from season 1. It's just, Flash. We're there in his house. He's showing us a thing.
It's crazy.
This is crazy. So that was amazing. That was an amazing experience. And one last thing I'll say is I'm also glad we did it when we did it, because sadly our heroes aren't around forever, right? So there's people that I see in that first season that I'm like, glad we got their story, because they're not here anymore. Hasn't even been that long, and they're not here anymore. They're not here anymore.
Yeah.
You know, so all of that, man.
From a production standpoint, were you expecting just the amount of different things, that bells and whistles that they had behind the scenes? Like, I'm sure they had ridiculous amounts of equipment over there.
Bro, everywhere we turned up, they were so surprised at how little we had.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
They'd be like, yo, Netflix is here. And then we show up, it's like 4 people, 2 cameras, sound.
That's it.
We had a great DOP who cared about every single interview. So every interview, he was trying to make sure the shot looked different, that it felt warm, that it like incorporated the character of the person. He had his, his lenses that would go to, but we would show up with 2-3 cameras, sound.
Wow.
And just do it.
I did not know that. Like,
and then a lot of the post stuff is great, right? A lot of the illustrations, the archival, a lot of that really helps it come alive. But then also, our director of photography and our director just making sure, it was warm. And but we were not a big production.
I could not tell from just looking at watching it on my TV.
Yeah.
It just seemed like just everything was immaculate. Lighting, everything was perfect.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
What's one thing that you learned from that experience, right? Because you got to travel around a lot. You got to speak to a lot of people, right? But like actually, before I ask that question, are they planning to make any more of that show? Damn.
There's no plans. Netflix is a very mysterious animal, So I wasn't involved in any of the negotiations or conversations or whatever, but apparently we put out the first season and the production company got a call that said, the show is performing. Let's discuss. And then at that time, Netflix was trying to get everything. Like, let's say 2016, Netflix whole MO was, let's have all the shows.
Yeah.
Right? So cut a check. We don't really get to see the numbers because Netflix, I think now they have to show the numbers, but back then that was not part of the conversations. Just, would you like to make more? The answer is obviously yes, and you get to do it. But I'm losing your question a little bit. But no, we're not getting we're not making more unless we get a call out of the blue. But Darby, Rodrigo, those guys have spun off their own production company. They're doing a bunch of exciting stuff. They're going to work on a Dilla doc with Questlove's production company.
Okay.
They're doing a documentary about indigenous hip hop. So that they have spun off their own production company and they're doing a bunch of wicked stuff. But I think it's almost time for more. Like, if by the time we had ended our show, I think it made sense to pause for a little bit so that we could get more history. Now I think we're at the point where it's like, okay, we could go back and talk about the mid 2000s, late 2000s. That's settled into enough of a narrative that, you could say, this is what that moment was about. This is the history. So I think it's time.
Yeah.
It's probably time.
And the second part of the question I was asking is, what did you learn from the whole experience? Like, now you're back onto the music and everything. What did you learn about yourself moving forward? So what I learned a lot. I learned some things about hip hop that I really didn't know.
or just really didn't think about. One is that hip hop is electronic music because I came into it rapping. So I always thought of hip hop as like poetry, or hip hop is like, you know, it's like folk music. It's like, well, this is where we tell our stories. But really, it's a story of technology from the turntable. Starts with a DJ and the turntable and beat machines, and that equipment evolves. So then hip hop evolves, and then the internet. And so hip hop evolves.
Yeah.
Right. So I started to look at hip hop differently and look at music differently. And I started to approach it differently. And, so that was one thing I learned, and one way that I kind of changed. But beyond that, you know, I'm really just grateful for that whole experience, and also touching different scenes, right? Because growing up here, there was music I was a fan of, and music that I just didn't connect with or relate to or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And always the experience is when you go to a place, then you just get it.
Yeah.
Right. So
you hear it in their environment.
You hear it in their environment, and then you get it. So that also happened with a lot of scenes, you know, Memphis, Houston, you know, music I just is so far geographically, culturally, I just didn't connect with it. And then you go there, you spend a lot of time there, you're like, oh, I like this, you know.
That's dope.
And so not that it necessarily finds its way into my music directly, but you can maybe feel that wider embrace a little bit.
Yeah. And, you know, we discussed earlier, like just the way your music has evolved over the years. And, you know, like I was saying, you become more revolutionary. And, you know, you give a lot of insight. Like, I feel like people probably come to you for insight, right? Like, do you do like mentoring in any type of way?
I love, especially at this stage, I love talking to young people. I love talking to people that are, especially like early 20s, about to really embark on life. You know, and because the older I get, the more I realize being young is hard. You know, I didn't necessarily, when you're young, that's just life is just life. But now the older I get, the more I'm like, man, being young is hard. You're trying to make big decisions and you don't know anything. And you feel like every decision is so heavy when life is hopefully long, and you can, you know, if you make a mistake, you can change course and all of that. So I love talking to young people, but I also love putting it in the music. I love putting it in the music.
Even with the things that I'm hearing from the music and just the amount of knowledge that you've acquired over time, right? And just the message in the music, like the message has become real heavy, dude. You know what I'm saying? Like you're talking about some real topics there. And I asked this in the beginning, or I mentioned this in the beginning. You ever think of getting into politics?
I'll tell you what's hard to me about getting into politics.
Please.
I've spent now almost 20 years getting to speak my mind without any interference. And politics to me is, and this has been said before, it's the art of compromise. It's the art of collaboration. I really respect that. I'm not practiced in it though. You know what I mean? I've spent the last 20 years getting as a solo artist. Not that I don't collaborate, but at the end of the day, the buck stops with me. I get to say what I want to say. I get to make it sound how I want it to sound. And so I'm not practiced in what I think a really great politician is about, which is building collaboration, community, consensus, giving up a little something over here in order to get this over here, in order to move us all forward. It's like that tension of that. I wish I had more experience with it. But if I were to ever get into politics, one thing I'd want to bring to it that comes from music is like, how can I put it? The words coming to mind is like almost the spiritual side of things. Like to be able to say, like one thing I don't see in politics in Canada is someone really talking about vision. Everything's reactive.
Right.
No disrespect, but a lot feels reactive. A lot feels like, oh, this has come up, so now this is the message. This has come up, now this is the message. And what I want to hear someone say is, I have my head around this society, and this is what I believe we are. This is what we've done well. This is what we haven't done well. This is who we could be in the future.
Right.
and this is what it's going to take. That level, that almost spiritual level of vision. You know what I mean? If I were to ever get into it, I would want to bring that kind of leadership. But unfortunately, I feel like I don't know if I have. The other thing I don't know.
Super utopian on top of that.
The other thing I don't know if I have either is the fight. Because again, I've been in music for 20 years. That takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To be like, okay, I have 30 more years of the kind of fight it takes to do politics right.
Yeah. And the scrutiny.
The scrutiny, what you have to go through in all those ways. But at the end of the day, my thing is especially at this stage of my life, my thing is always, how can I help? How can I contribute? And so if things evolve to a point where it's like, this is where the contribution, people need me to make that contribution, then that's what it would be.
I feel like this is not the first time you've heard this before.
I've heard it before.
Yes.
Yeah, I've heard it before.
Yeah. It's not something that I heard in an interview.
Yeah.
It's just from my research and just listening to your music and the ways that watching the way you evolved. I'm like, I feel like somebody's asked this guy to be a politician before. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's come up. Those are my hesitations. Those are my hesitations. But like I said, my thing, especially now, especially after, like I said, years of being able to tell my story, I feel lighter.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm interested in helping. Whatever that looks like, that's what this phase of my life is about.
Yeah. What is the evolution of Shad, let's say, over the next 10 years?
So what I feel really in my heart, we already touched on the mentorship. Like I love, and I'm going to have the opportunity this fall. I'm teaching a music class at Laurier, where I went to school. I'm co-teaching something at U of T. So any opportunity to like talk to young people about life feels right.
Yeah.
It feels, that makes sense. You know? I'm also always music creating is something nobody has to ask me to do. I mean, it's still the core of my career, but even if it wasn't, I'd be rapping.
Yeah.
It's just what I do at this point, you know? And just music in general. I'm a music guy before anything. But in 10 years, who knows, bro?
Who knows, man?
Who knows?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Listen, bro, I feel like, what are we at? 40 minutes?
Yeah.
It's not even that long, but we got to really get to find out about you, because I've been doing my research and I'm looking for long form Shad interviews.
Yeah.
And I found, I think one that was like maybe 20 something minutes, but everything else is like 9 minutes. You at a radio station, just like, you know,
just
rapper
quick promo
interviews.
stuff. Quick promo stuff. Yeah.
Right. So, you know, now that we're in the age of podcasting, and I get to be, as a hip hop fan, to get to talk to people who I've watched on television myself and get to find out really what makes you tick. I'm really happy that you took the time to have this convo with me,
I'm glad to do it. I love what you're doing.
Thank you, man.
Yeah. I love what you're doing, and just bringing all the, people from our scene, but also corresponding, telling people about, you know, what goes on up here. So I appreciate you.
Last question.
Yeah.
Are you happy with where hip hop is right now? Holy shit. That was crazy.
You know, okay, this is what I think. We're 50 years now. I think the important thing for the culture is two things. One, continue to grow, continue to evolve. But for that to happen, you got to also preserve the traditions.
Yeah.
So you preserve and you honor the traditions, the culture, and then you innovate and you move forward and you do all that. So as long as we do that, and I'm starting to see it more, especially in the 50th anniversary, there was a lot of celebration of the pioneers, celebration of the elements and the craft. You know, like what blew up hip hop is the fact that breakdancing is amazing.
Yeah.
Is the fact that what guys do with rhymes is amazing. Is the fact that what DJs have evolved to be able to do is amazing. So we got to keep the skill and the craft and those traditions strong, and then let people take it wherever they want to take it. So I hope we continue to do that. I saw that last year, and I'm seeing it a bit more in Canada.
Right.
In terms of honoring the foundations. We're starting to do it better. In general, I like where hip hop is going because it's just going everywhere. One thing I don't love is what's happening with live performance.
Yeah. Oh my God.
That's where I got to take the political hat off, put my old head hat on, and say, let's keep the art of performing and really doing something for the people alive.
Yeah.
People are paying money. People are giving you their time. Like, rehearse. Get good.
Don't rap over the instrumental.
Rap over the
please
learn your material.
Yeah. Learn
how to entertain people. Learn how to inspire people. Like it's how you honor the gift of music. You know what I mean? So that's the one criticism I would put out there.
Well, listen, man, you're hearing it from the man himself, somebody who I will consider a hip hop historian out here. Okay. We got Shad in the building. What you got coming up next?
I got an EP coming this summer, hopefully this summer, and an album next year. And we'll see what's up from there.
Dope.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you for having this conversation here with me right here. Before I get out of here, I'm going to do a quick salute to the sponsors once again. Big salute to Diamond Club for that delivery of the Loud. Hit them up on their Instagram page, Diamond Club _Canada. And big up to Steamin' Hot Grabba. Hit them up on their Instagram page, Steamin' Hot Grabba. Shad K in the building.
Hey.
We are off of this. Deuces.
We love hip hop.